talk about what anxiety is, the symptoms of anxiety, the reactions to anxiety, and the tips that you can use in order to manage your anxiety. First off, anxiety is your body's natural response to stress, so a feeling of fear or worry. But it is important to know that anxiety is completely normal and it is extremely common. However, anxiety can become a problem when it starts to interfere with your ability to enjoy the things that you love, or when it comes to living your daily life. So anxiety happens as it is trying to keep us safe, and it is part of the fight or flight response, which is essentially an instinct helping us to react to danger. However, our brains can't always tell the difference between a real threat, so for example if a car was speeding towards you, or a stressful situation, for example if you needed to speak in public. This can then lead to anxiety even when you feel safe, as when your brain perceives a threat, whether that be real or imagined, it can release adrenaline, therefore increasing your heart rate along with other symptoms. So before I delve into the symptoms of anxiety, I just want to note that anxiety can affect everyone differently, but there are some common signs to look out for, and these symptoms can be physical, mental and emotional. So some physical symptoms can be a fast or pounding heartbeat, shortness of breath or a tight chest, sweating even when it's not hot, or stomach issues like nausea. I know that for me, when I was anxious, or when I do feel anxious, I have very sweaty hands, I start shaking a little bit, or trembling. I used to feel quite nauseous as well due to my anxiety. And these physical symptoms happen because your body is in fight or flight mode, and it is getting ready to react to danger even if there isn't one. Some of the mental symptoms of anxiety include overthinking every situation, constant worrying about the worst case scenario, struggling to remember things or make decisions, and racing thoughts that won't slow down. Again, I am someone that does suffer with anxiety, and I know that I am always worrying and overthinking every situation, and I'm always thinking about the worst case scenario. And anxiety can make your brain go into overdrive, which can make it hard to focus on anything else. So some of the emotional symptoms are irritability, so like you're getting annoyed easily, you're feeling on edge or restless. So when it comes to the responses of anxiety, there are 4 that are known. So there is the fight, the flight, the freeze, and the fawn. And each response is your brain's way of trying to keep you safe, even when there isn't real danger. So the fight response is essentially your body preparing to confront a threat. This can lead to feelings of anger, frustration or irritability. So you might be feeling on edge, you might be clenching your fists, and you might feel the need to control the situation. And because your brain thinks you need to protect yourself, your body will essentially gear up for a battle. Again, even if the danger is real or imagined. The flight response is your body wanting to escape the situation to avoid harm, and you may feel the urge to leave or avoid things that can cause anxiety. So you might be avoiding social situations or responsibilities, you might be feeling the need to escape or leave quickly, you might be feeling restless, or you might be having racing thoughts that are trying to find a way out. And essentially that is your brain telling you to get away from what feels unsafe. The freeze response is when your body shuts down or it goes still, which can therefore make it hard to act. And this can often happen when you either feel trapped or overwhelmed. So that might then lead into you struggling to speak or move. You might feel numb, or you might feel stuck or paralysed. And this might happen because when escape feels impossible, your brain freezes your body to protect you, essentially like a deer caught in headlights. And finally, the fawn response is something which I know that I tend to do quite a lot, and that is you essentially try to please others to avoid conflict or danger. And this response can often stem from past situations where being agreeable felt safer. So you might be over apologising even when it's not your fault. You might be ignoring your own needs to please others, and you might be feeling responsible for keeping the peace. So now we're going to delve into some coping techniques that you can do to manage your anxiety. So the first one that I especially like to do is to move my body. That can be whether you go for a walk, you can do push-ups, you can stretch. And I know that for me, whenever I'm feeling anxious, I will just go on a walk or dance around my room listening to music, and that just helps to release any tension. The second tip that I would recommend for managing anxiety is progressive muscle relaxation. So that's essentially where you tense and release different muscle groups. So you can start at your feet and you can work your way up. You can clench your fists and you just essentially tighten your fists and then release. I tend to do it for a minute and then just release, and that massively helps just to keep myself back into the present. Another one of my favourites is the grounding technique, which is essentially 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. This technique allows you to put your focus back into the present instead of focusing on the future. Another coping technique that I would recommend is a safe space visualization. So you essentially picture a calm, safe place in your mind. You imagine every detail. What do you see, what do you hear, and what do you feel? The next tip that I would say is a temperature shift. So you can either splash cold water on your face or you can hold a cold object. And this can help again to bring you back to the present. Some other ones, this is for if you have a fawn response, and one that I find incredibly important is a self-check-in. So asking yourself, what do I need right now? And am I agreeing because I want to or because I'm afraid to say no? I know that for me, because of my fawn response with my anxiety, I often have that question, am I agreeing because I actually want to do this? Or am I afraid to say no, so I'm just going along with it? Also want to acknowledge as well that what works for one person may not work for someone else. And if a technique doesn't work right away, that is also okay. Managing anxiety is a personal journey, and it can often take some trial and error to work out what truly works for you.